Subscribe now and turn on the bell to receive all our videos. January 3rd, 2026, at 2 a.m., Caracas, Venezuela. An American military operation breached a fortified presidential complex in less than an hour. Nicolás Maduro was arrested and transported to New York. The question is, how did the operation succeed so quickly? Reports speak of an inside source, a mysterious spy. Within hours, a single woman took power, Delcy Rodríguez. Who is she and how did she get there? This is what we will reveal. At exactly 2 a.m. Caracas time on January 3rd, 2026, an unprecedented American military operation began. The forces executed Operation Absolute Decision against the complex where Maduro was located. Fighter jets and attack helicopters participated in the assault. According to the Cuban government, 32 Cuban guards were killed. The Pentagon did not announce any American casualties. Maduro and his wife, Cilia Flores, were arrested and transported by helicopter to the aircraft carrier USS Iwo Jima in the Caribbean. From there, Maduro was moved to Stewart Air National Guard Base in New York, then detained at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. The entire operation took less than an hour. This exceptional speed raised questions. How did American forces obtain such precise information? The complex was heavily fortified, yet the operation was executed with suspicious precision. Military analysts pointed out that this level of success required exceptional intelligence. Reports indicated precise knowledge of Maduro's location, guard schedules, and security vulnerabilities. All of this points to a high-level inside source who provided planners with vital details. The biggest question, who is this person? After the operation, NBC News published a report based on American intelligence sources. The report revealed the role of a high-level human inside source who provided the CIA with vital information: Maduro's exact location, guard details, and vulnerabilities in the complex. The information included detailed maps and daily schedules. The report indicated that previous phone calls helped confirm Maduro's presence. This level of precision could only be obtained from someone at the heart of the very tight security circle. The circle around Maduro was limited. Fewer than 10 people knew his daily movements. But the source's identity remained completely secret. The CIA maintained total silence, which is customary in covert operations. Questions remain. Who is he and why did he betray? Was he disgruntled with the regime? Did he receive a massive financial payout? Or was he promised protection for his family? All are possible scenarios. What is certain is that this person provided information that changed the course of Venezuelan history. His identity may remain a secret forever, protected by American intelligence, or it may be revealed one day to become one of the most famous stories of betrayal in modern history. The U.S. justified the operation with a federal arrest warrant against Maduro from 2020. The warrant, issued by a federal court in New York, accuses him of 4 crimes: terrorism, drug trafficking, cocaine importation, weapons possession, and conspiracy to possess weapons. According to the indictments, Maduro collaborated with criminal organizations, including the Cartel of the Suns, to smuggle massive quantities of drugs from Venezuela to America. Prosecutors allege he used state apparatuses, the military, and airports to facilitate the smuggling of large quantities of cocaine. Venezuela rejected these accusations, calling them fabricated and political. The U.S. National Security Council stated that the operation was to bring a dangerous criminal to face justice. However, this justification faced widespread international criticism. International law experts considered the use of a national warrant as justification for a military operation against the president of a sovereign state to be a violation of international law and the UN Charter, which prohibits the use of force against nations. The legal question: does a country have the right to enforce its warrants by force in other countries? This debate continues today. On the same day of the operation, January 3rd, the Venezuelan Supreme Court convened in an emergency session. The decision, published by state media and reported by Reuters, was swift and decisive. Based on Article 335 of the Constitution, the court ordered Delcy Rodríguez to temporarily assume all presidential powers. The classification was precise. The court described Maduro's absence as temporary, not absolute. This distinction is crucial. In an absolute absence, elections are held within 30 days. But in a temporary absence, The vice president assumes power for 90 days, extendable up to 180 days, without immediate elections. This gave Rodríguez full internal constitutional legitimacy and avoided rushed elections under sensitive circumstances. Western countries refused to recognize the decision's legitimacy, considering the court loyal to the regime. However, internally, the decision provided a clear legal framework for the transfer of power. On January 5th, the decision was officially implemented in a swearing-in ceremony. January 5th, 2026, witnessed a historic moment in Venezuela, the first woman sworn in as president. In a ceremony at the National Assembly headquarters in Caracas, Delcy Rodríguez took the oath before officials and military officers. The ceremony was broadcast live on state television. The oath was administered by her brother, Jorge Rodríguez, president of the National Assembly. This scene reflected the continuity of power within the loyalist elite. The ceremony was attended by ministers, military commanders, representatives of allied parties, and diplomats from Russia, China, Cuba, Nicaragua, and Bolivia. In her speech after taking the oath, Rodríguez said, "I pledge before the Venezuelan people to defend our constitution and sovereignty, whatever the challenges. Venezuela will not kneel and will not be a colony for any foreign power." She added, "I will work day and night to restore stability to our country, protect our institutions, and ensure that the voice of the Venezuelan people is the one that decides its fate, not foreign powers." The speech carried clear messages: defiance of foreign intervention, commitment to the Constitution, and a promise of stability. Delcy Rodríguez Gómez was born on May 18, 1969, in Caracas. She graduated as a lawyer and worked in the legal field before transitioning to politics. Her journey was tied to the Bolivarian Revolution started by Chávez in the 1990s. She held high-ranking positions for over 2 decades. She served as Minister of Foreign Affairs from 2014 to 2017, a period of intense tension with America and the West. She was the government's diplomatic face at the UN and international forums, known for her strong speeches. After her time as foreign minister, she became president of the Constituent Assembly from 2017 to 2020, a controversial body created by Maduro to parallel the opposition-led parliament. The most significant step came in June 2018 when Maduro appointed her vice president, the first woman in this role. Since then, she was considered one of his closest confidants. This long political history made her the natural constitutional choice in Maduro's absence. Her experience in foreign affairs, legislation, and administration made her qualified for the position. But the question is, will she be just a continuation of Maduro, or will she offer something different? A crucial aspect of Rodríguez's international standing is the sanctions. In 2017, America imposed personal sanctions on her due to her role in the Constituent Assembly. The sanctions include asset freezes and a ban on entering America. The European Union imposed similar sanctions, a travel ban to all 27 EU countries, and asset freezes. Canada also joined these measures. This situation makes her assumption of power diplomatically problematic. On one hand, she enjoys full internal constitutional legitimacy according to Venezuelan law. On the other hand, she is considered an individual under sanctions by Western powers. This contradiction complicates any direct negotiation with Western administrations and limits her ability to travel for international summits or high-level meetings. Financial sanctions make it difficult to manage economic relations with international banks tied to the Western financial system. These restrictions, while not invalidating her internal authority, pose an obstacle to attempts to reintegrate Venezuela into the global economy and lift sweeping sanctions. The question is, will she be able to negotiate their lifting, or will she remain isolated? In her first speech broadcast on state television on January 4th, Rodríguez presented her vision. The speech was directed at multiple audiences: the Venezuelan people, the international community, and internal forces. She began with a clear condemnation of the American operation, describing it as the armed kidnapping of the president of a sovereign state. She said, "What happened on the night of January 3rd is a blatant aggression against Venezuelan sovereignty and a violation of international law. Venezuela will not kneel and will not be a colony of any foreign power." However, in a striking turn, she shifted to a more pragmatic tone, saying, "Despite the difficult circumstances, I invite all international parties to a respectful dialogue based on mutual interests and respect for sovereignty. Venezuela is ready to build balanced relations with all countries, including America, but based on mutual respect." This sentence drew widespread attention, as some considered it a signal of her desire to turn a new page. Internally, she declared 7 days of national mourning for the souls of the martyrs who fell defending Venezuela. She concluded, "I pledge to work tirelessly to protect our constitution, restore stability, and ensure that the voice of the Venezuelan people is the one that decides its fate." On January 5th, 2 days after his arrest, Maduro appeared before the federal court in New York. The hearing, presided over by Judge Alvin Hellerstein, was the focus of global media attention. It was attended by dozens of journalists and broadcast live. Maduro, wearing an orange prison jumpsuit, refused to stand when the judge entered, in a gesture of defiance. He was read the 4 charges: terrorism, drug trafficking, cocaine importation, weapons possession, and conspiracy to possess weapons. He pleaded not guilty to all of them. According to witnesses, Maduro declared in Spanish, "I am the elected president of my country. I consider myself a prisoner of war, not a criminal. This is an illegal international kidnapping." His lawyer, Barry Pollock, known for defending Assange, presented a legal argument. "My client, the president of a sovereign state, was kidnapped illegally. This court has no jurisdiction over a foreign head of state, and the proceedings are void." Pollock demanded the dismissal of the case and rejected the legitimacy of the court. The judge did not rule immediately and postponed a review. He denied a request for release on bail and ordered his continued detention in Brooklyn. The next hearing is set for March 17, 2026. The Russian reaction was one of the fiercest internationally. In an emergency session of the Security Council on January 5th, Russian Ambassador Nebenzia described the operation in harsh terms. "What happened is modern-day piracy in the Caribbean and a mockery of international law and the UN Charter." In an official statement, he confirmed it was a blatant armed aggression against a sovereign state, demanding Maduro's immediate release. Moscow accused America that the real goal was not justice, but control over Venezuelan natural resources, especially oil. The Russian Foreign Ministry announced its full support for Rodríguez as the legitimate acting president, indicating Moscow's readiness to continue supporting our friend Venezuela. This stance is not surprising given the close relations between Moscow and Caracas over the past 2 decades. Venezuela is an important strategic partner for Russia in Latin America, and Moscow has massive investments in Venezuelan oil. Russia also views the American intervention with concern as a dangerous precedent that could be used against it or its allies in the future. Parallel to the Russian position, China condemned the operation, but in a more cautious tone. The next day, the spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry announced that Beijing was shocked and strongly condemned the American use of military force against a sovereign state, confirming that these hegemonic acts violate international law and the UN Charter. In his speech at the UN, the Chinese ambassador stated that no country, no matter how powerful, can act as the world's policeman, in a direct reference to America. China called on Washington to immediately halt attempts to change the Venezuelan government and respect the right of the Venezuelan people to freely choose their system. The Chinese position, despite its sharpness, was framed within a more disciplined diplomatic context than the Russian one. Beijing refrained from explicitly declaring support for Rodríguez by name, preferring to speak about respecting the will of the Venezuelan people and constitutional institutions. Chinese-Venezuelan economic relations are deep. China is one of the largest investors in Venezuela and the most important buyer of its oil. It has also loaned Caracas billions of dollars in exchange for oil. But the cautious stance reflects a strategic desire not to enter into direct, sharp confrontation with America. The European Union chose a more balanced and complex position. In an official statement on January 4th, Brussels called for calm and restraint from all parties, confirming the need to respect international law and the UN Charter. The statement noted the EU's concern over military escalation and the violation of national sovereignty. However, the position included an important notation that Maduro lacked the legitimacy of a democratically elected president. hinting at Europe's stance on the July elections, whose fairness it questioned. This dual position reflected a European division, rejecting unilateral military intervention, but not recognizing the legitimacy of Maduro or his successors from the same regime. The Union did not announce its recognition of Rodríguez, preferring passive neutrality while awaiting internal developments. Some countries, like Spain, which hosts opposition leader Edmundo González, called for a peaceful democratic solution that respects the will of the people. This balanced stance reflects Europe's attempt to remain between the two camps, not supporting American intervention, but also not legitimizing the Venezuelan regime's future. The European position may depend on Rodríguez's steps toward democracy and reform. On January 5th, the Security Council held an emergency session to discuss the events, backed by Russia, China, and other countries. The session revealed a sharp division among permanent members over the assessment and handling of the events. Russia and China used the session to strongly condemn the operation and demand Washington adhere to international law. In contrast, the American representative defended the operation, stating it was a legitimate judicial operation to bring a dangerous criminal to justice, denying it was an illegal military intervention. Britain and France took a middle ground stance, expressing concern over the method while emphasizing the importance of holding the accused accountable. Secretary General Guterres issued a statement expressing deep concern over the events, warning of potential escalation into regional instability. He called on all parties to exercise restraint and respect international law without directly condemning the operation. At the end of the session, the Council failed to issue a unified statement due to fundamental differences over the legal and political assessment. This failure reflects the depth of the international division over the Venezuelan issue and signals the difficulty of reaching an agreed-upon international solution. Latin America saw mixed reactions, but largely dominated by concern over the dangerous precedent. 6 countries, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Uruguay, along with Spain, issued a joint statement in the following days. The statement expressed deep concern and rejection of unilateral military actions, considering the operation a dangerous precedent for regional peace. The 6 countries, despite their differences over Maduro, agreed that military intervention violates the principle of non-intervention in internal affairs, a principle of special importance in the continent given the history of American interventions. The statement called for a peaceful democratic solution that respects the will of the Venezuelan people. In contrast, other countries took a different stance. Argentina, under a right-wing, pro-American administration, expressed understanding of the operation, noting that Maduro was a dictator who lost his legitimacy, although it did not officially endorse the operation. El Salvador and Ecuador took similar positions. This division reflects the political polarization in the continent. The Latin American left views the operation as imperialist aggression, while the right sees it as an opportunity to get rid of a dictator. The common denominator is the fear that this precedent could become a model for future American intervention. While Rodríguez tried to consolidate her power, the exiled opposition continued its demands for governance. Maria Corina Machado, the 2025 Nobel Peace Prize laureate, issued a sharp statement on January 6th. Arresting Maduro is a correct step, but replacing him with Rodríguez means replacing one dictator with another from the same gang. The Venezuelan people deserve a democratically elected leadership, not appointments from a loyalist court. Edmundo González, from his exile in Madrid, adopted a more cautious but firm tone. In a press conference, he said, "The transition may open opportunities, but the only solution is free and fair elections under international supervision. I call on Rodríguez to prove her good intentions by calling for elections within 3 months." González, whom many consider the legitimate president based on the disputed July elections, enjoys broad Western support. But Rodríguez responded clearly in subsequent official statements. "Whoever wants to govern Venezuela, let them return to the country and run in elections. We will not accept agendas dictated from abroad, whether from Washington or opposition leaders in European hotels while their people suffer." This strong rhetoric boosted her popularity among her base, but reduced the chances of genuine dialogue with the opposition. Behind all the political developments, oil remains the primary driver of major powers' interest in Venezuela. According to OPEC and the U.S. Energy Information Administration, Venezuela holds the largest proven oil reserves in the world, 303 billion barrels, surpassing Saudi Arabia, Russia, and Iraq combined. This wealth lies in the Orinoco Belt, where the heavy oil requires advanced technology. The problem is that the oil industry has collapsed. Production dropped from 3.5 million barrels per day in the 1990s to less than 800,000 currently. The reasons: mismanagement, corruption, lack of investment, brain drain, and American sanctions that prevented major oil companies from operating. PDVSA, which was once one of the most powerful oil companies, has become nearly bankrupt. Rodríguez, in one of her speeches, affirmed, "Venezuela's oil will remain the property of the Venezuelan people, and we will not allow any power to plunder it." But reality imposes challenges. Without massive investments in advanced technology from international companies, it is difficult to revive the collapsed industry. The biggest question: will Rodríguez succeed in attracting international investments while sanctions remain? And will she accept conditions that might be considered concessions to the West? Oil will remain the decisive factor in Venezuela's future. Beyond geopolitics and oil, there is a harsh humanitarian reality experienced by 28 million Venezuelans. The economic crisis has left devastating impacts. More than 7 million have emigrated since 2015 in one of the largest waves of migration in the continent's history. Most headed to Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, and Brazil, while hundreds of thousands reached America and Europe. Those who remain face severe challenges. Monthly salaries rarely exceed $20, while the cost of living is multiples of that. Electricity cuts out daily for hours, and water is not regularly available. Hospitals lack the most basic medicines and equipment, forcing patients to buy even gloves from the black market at high prices. Schools suffer from a shortage of teachers and books, and the infrastructure is crumbling. The Venezuelan people, who have paid a heavy price for decades of mismanagement, corruption, sanctions, and crises, are waiting for a simple answer. Will our lives improve? Will we see real change, or will things stay the same or get worse? This question determines the legitimacy of any incoming government. The people care little for political speeches, but rather for bread, medicine, and electricity. As Rodríguez continues in power, analysts lay out potential scenarios.